Today on the Basketball Manitoba podcast, we have a very special guest, Todd MacCulloch. Todd is a Manitoba basketball legend. For most, I don't have to read his bio, but for those that don't know, I still will. He attended Shaftsbury High School, where he helped lead the team to consecutive championships in 1993 and 1994. He was also a member of the Manitoba Provincial Team for 4 summers, including the 1993 Summer Games, where he helped lead Manitoba over a Steve Nash-led Team British Columbia. He was heavily recruited out of high school and decided to play at the University of Washington. There, he was named All-Pac 10 first team and led the NCAA Division I in field goal percentage in his last 3 seasons. In 1999, he made Manitoba history by being selected 47th overall by the Philadelphia 76ers. He went on to play in the NBA Finals for 2 consecutive seasons. However, after 4 seasons in the NBA, he was forced to retire prematurely because of neuromuscular disorder that affected his feet. Internationally, he represented Canada 93 times. He won bronze in the 1995 Universiade Games. In 1999, he won a silver medal at the FIBA Americas Championships and qualified for the 2000 Olympic Games in Sydney, Australia. In Sydney, Canada won its group, defeating Yugoslavia, but eventually lost to the silver medalist France in the quarterfinals and finished 7th. This is the last time the men's program has qualified for the Olympic Games. He rounded out his international career with a bronze medal in the 2001 FIBA Americas in Argentina. He's been a great supporter of the inner-city basketball programs in Winnipeg for over 20 years, with a program that has seen over 10,000 children participate and still bears his name to this day, the Todd MacCulloch Hoop School. He is a Manitoba Basketball Hall of Fame member and Manitoba High School's Hall of Fame member class of 2009, and a Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame member class of 2014. Todd, welcome to the podcast.
It's good to be here. That was quite the introduction. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Like I said, we have to make sure that everyone understands, because what I'm about to say next is going to be shocking to some. Some people are going to smack me for even saying this, but I graduated high school 2 years after you were drafted. And this is like right around the time, obviously, in Canada, I really started getting to the NBA, but it also started to get really big, right? Vince Carter was really big. The Canadian networks really started to play games on TV. So, my first memories of you was essentially, watching Shaq do what he did to every opponent.
Sorry you had to watch that.
Yeah, in the NBA Finals. But I was proud to see someone from my small town, right, on national TV. And so I want to talk more about this later, but really I say all that just to say that's my first memory of you. What are your first memories of basketball? Who got you into the game? Who were some of those early mentors?
Some of my buddies, Chris Manalastis and Mike Guthrie and Jeff Cron and Josh Laba and Colin Jones and just a bunch of my friends. They all love basketball, and I wanted to be around my friends. And so we would play everything. I mean, I grew up playing hockey because that's what everybody does in Winnipeg. Yeah. And then at some point, I think maybe age out of it. I was the biggest guy, but I didn't feel like the biggest guy. I think I don't see myself as big as I am. And so I think when I was 11, I was playing for the Twins, and we were having a successful season, and we won the cities, and then we beat Brandon, and we won the provincials, and then everyone was excited about the next year because we got the body check, and my teammates were excited to hit people, and I was not excited about hitting everyone. And I realized that everyone wants to hit me. They want to check the big guy. And so I decided hockey was no longer for me. So that freed up a whole lot of time in my schedule, and was on to the next season, whether it was soccer or volleyball or whatever. And my friends want to play basketball. And so being athletic and being tall and being coordinated, they always welcomed me along. And so I think the first team I played on was a YBC team through the YMCA. And I remember Chris Manalastis was on that team. He was a high school teammate of mine at Shaftesbury. And we had a couple of guys on the team. I don't remember their names, but they were the best players I'd ever seen in my life. And they carried us, and we had a good team. And it was like, someday I want to be like those guys. And I wish I remembered who they were, but they led the scoring on that team. And then we had a good team at Van Wallingham was a new school back then in Leonard Woods. And so that group of players that we had played together on the YBC team, all of a sudden Van Wallingham had a 6th grade team, and then that team stayed together for 7, and then that team stayed together for 8 and 9. And all of a sudden now Shaftesbury had a feeder school that they didn't have before. And so that's how that's how I sort of fell into to basketball. It was the next game, it was the next season, and then as I continued to grow, I think I was 6 feet at the start of 9th grade, and then 6'6" at the end of it. So naturally, people always associate height with basketball, also volleyball, but those two became pretty important to me. So that's how it started. I love to play games. I love to run. And basketball was what my friends were doing, and then we'd go get a Slurpee after practice. So it was as much a social thing as anything.
Yeah. So then, like early on, obviously you said that team stuck together. You're playing with your friends. You're kind of moving up, going to Shaftesbury, and obviously you went on to play in high school in Shaftesbury. Had great success, but along that way, was it mainly just your friends that kind of kept you going, or were there some key guys that kind of stepped in, coaches, parents, other people that are like, hey, you know what? You should keep doing this. I guess the big question is when did it become like real more serious for you, from like playing with buddies to like, oh, this is something that I'm actually doing?
I think probably with Coach Doug Fraser and Richard Gooch, and just the great coaching that I had. Tony Chu as a freshman, great coach. We had a lot of success on the freshman team. We, that team that we, Dale Bradshaw came in and did a great job helping us, defensively. And so we had a core, and I get a lot of the credit, and sometimes, not enough credit is given to, Colin Jones and Jeff Cron and lots of other, players on that team, Murray Davidson, all those guys. And so I get a lot of the credit, but we had a really good team, and we had, Ryan Fraser bringing up the point, he just all in his right hand, but nobody could take the ball away from him. And so we had a monster defense, and for a while there we did some platooning. So we had 5 on and 5 off, and that kept us fresh. And that we ended up going undefeated until the provincial final. We lost to Crocus Plains, I think, by 1 or 2, and that was devastating. And I remember, Greg Duclius from Shaftesbury said, that's okay, we'll win it next year, and he was right. And so we. I think it was just, the coaches believed in me. And at some point, I think I may have played in 3 or 4 varsity games as a 10th grader on the freshman team. But I was, mentally sort of scared. Like I can't play varsity. I'm too young. I'm too small, even though I was probably the tallest kid in the province. Just mentally, I didn't think I could compete with the varsity. And I went up and I didn't do particularly well in those games, but I think I just needed to mature in my own time. And I think I just had to trust that, Coach Fraser and Coach Gooch believed in me. They could see the potential in me. And then at some point, started to get some interest from University of Manitoba, University of Washington, and I would go and watch their games and think, why are those coaches interested in me? I go and I watch, those men play, and I'll never be as good as those guys. But that's sometimes I think it's hard to see, beyond just where you're at. But that's why those coaches were so important to me. To believe in me and know that I could be successful if I just kept developing, and Coach Klapik and Randy Cassano in the summer playing for the provincial team, and so it was an all year thing. It was play for the school year, and then it was play on the provincial team in the summer. So I had good coaching all year round, and really benefited from really good coaches, really good people, really fun, and loved my teammates as well. So it made playing basketball all year round an enjoyable thing and something that I wanted to continue to do.
Absolutely. So then you went on, obviously at Shaftesbury, you guys won back to back. Obviously you said like, hey, in the 10th grade, you guys came up short. Obviously go back to back in those next 2 years. You win 2 championships. Typically, from everything, I've never won a championship in anything, so I have no experience with this. But people who have won multiple championships tell me that the first one, they always have these special feelings about it. Like it's this fond memory, like it's ingrained in their mind. Is that true for you as well?
It couldn't be more true. And the first one was very special. And I, after coming so close freshman year and winning all of our games till the championship, and then losing, I think I missed 2 free throws with 30 seconds left in the game, and we ended up losing. And just having that sit with me all summer, I couldn't wait to get back at it. And then my grade 11 year, we had myself and I think at this time I'm 6'9", and I think Murray Davidson is maybe 6'8". So we had the Twin Towers, and I think we went 0-6. So we had great expectations, but based on their success as a freshman team, but also with Murray's size and Greg Duclius's 3-point shooting and defense and. But I think we lost our first 6 games and everyone was trying to figure out what was going on. So I think we just kind of had to put our egos in check and learn to play together and figure out how we could play with 2 big guys on the court and how do we stop teams. And then I think we won the last 20. And so we went up against Daryl Baptiste and Daniel McIntyre in the final, and they were the defending champions. And to me, I mean, they were the champs. And I wasn't sure I could really see us knocking them off. They were very, very good. And Daryl is an incredible player. We were up by 3 with, I don't know, maybe 3 seconds left. And for some reason, Jeff Cron tripped and bumped into Daryl while he was shooting a 3, who was an excellent free throw shooter. And he gets 3 free throws with a chance to tie it up with a couple seconds left. And I wanted to strangle Jeff. Fortunately, I didn't. And so Daryl, I think, missed the first 2 and then made the third one. And now we're inbounding with a few seconds left, and everybody knows it's going to me. I was the outlet on our press break, and so the inbounder just threw it up super high, and I jumped up and grabbed it, and everybody was fighting for it, and that killed enough time that the buzzer went off. And I've never had a greater high in basketball than that moment when we were ahead by 2. The game was over. We had dethroned the champs, and forever we were going to be provincial champs. And, I'm still able to talk about it 30 years later. And I ran around. It was an out of body experience. I felt lighter than air. I ran around the gym like a crazy person. And I've never, whether it's the Olympics or the NCAA tournament, Sweet 16, or even the NBA finals, nothing has captured how I felt like in my soul that moment. So I think my whole life I've been chasing for that basketball high, and I've had some great experiences and I wouldn't trade any of them. But none of them, the elation that I felt and the emotion that I felt in that moment was really cool. And then to be able to share it with a whole team and a coaching staff and Paul Arsenault, our amazing manager. It was incredible. Just it was something that will stick with me forever. And I was very proud that we won it. And then when we won it the next year, it was also fun. It was also great, but it wasn't the same as that first year when we became provincial champions.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I've heard this from other people, and they went on to play pro and they've won championships in their league, and they're just like, it's not the same. There's something about high school, something about that time in your life, doing it in your community that just makes it that much more special and ingrains on you. And again, of course, you're growing up, you're a young person, and those types of experiences become super special. But again, like I said, I have no idea how it feels to be a champion, so I'm gonna have to take your word for it. But it's I'm curious because you had mentioned you mentioned Coach Cassano and Klapik. Did they coach you in 1993 as well? Or who were your coaches that year in the summer games?
Yes, they were the coaches, and they led us to that victory against Steve Nash's team. And that was another thing where, we're Manitoba. We're not supposed to be British Columbia, particularly a British Columbia team that has Steve Nash. He was already a legend, across Canada. We knew how good he was. And we had a very good team as well, but I didn't know how we were going to beat a team like that. But, Randy and Darren, they believed in us, and they had a great game plan. And we had some, John Hannock and, Jeff Jezzard and, Elliot Unger. And anyway, we had a really good team of really, really tough guys, and they weren't bowing down to anybody. And so that was a great win.
Well, how did we finish that year?
I think we didn't. I don't think we medaled. So I think that was the highlight of that trip. Okay. And so I think we lost to a tough Quebec team. And I think Quebec was not rated as high as BC. So you sort of do the transitive property, if you're better than this team. And so we probably should have beaten Quebec, but we lost. And I think that may have knocked us out of the medal round. And I think we didn't end up on the podium, but we certainly we had some good wins, particularly that one against. Anytime you beat Steve Nash in basketball is a good day.
Of course. I was going to say, obviously, went out to play with him later on. It was funny, like Adam puts up like the greatest games, or he'll put up old games, and this one game stands out. And I used to work in the Basketball Manitoba office, so he'd throw them up and they'd be on TV, or he'd be like rendering them. And, of course, tons of your games are on there. And one of them was, I believe, Oak Park, Shaftesbury. I believe I might be completely speaking at the Wit, I think. But it's so funny to watch how they guarded you. And I know some of the players on those teams, right? I ended up playing, in senior men's leagues against them and stuff. And like, they were literally double teaming you when you like the ball's there and they're like, we're just going to double team you. And it was unbelievable. Now, again, obviously back then, nowadays you'd probably get punished from a 3-point shooting team, and the effect you would have in now would be 10 times more devastating, because if you had any shooters, like a bunch of shooters on their team, you'd just letting it fly and you'd be getting offensive rebounds. It'd just be devastating. But they're like daring the teams to shoot. They're like 3 meters off them and just kind of putting their hands up in the passing lane. I was like, what is going on here? And again, not understanding at the time that the game was just a little different back then. And then obviously you're so, you were just such a force. So it was like this double combination. But I say all that just to say, obviously you had a super successful high school career. You obviously playing with the provincial team. You went to play at Washington. Now you must have had tons of other schools recruiting you. I'm just going to go out and assume that. So who was recruiting you? And then why'd you choose Washington?
So I played on the summer provincial team with Randy Sano and Clapic, and we went down to Phoenix, Arizona. And we played well, and it was a lot of those same players from that provincial team. Mm-hmm. And I played well enough to get recruited by about 60 schools or so. So I wasn't expecting anything to come out of that week. Just, I'm with my teammates and we're in Arizona and we're getting cooked in the sun, and we were trying to hold our own. But I think we played against Rafe LaFrenz, who went on to a really mm-hmm. good NBA career. So I think everyone in the world was recruiting Rafe. So they're all there to watch him. And then they see him, he was way better than me. He was always better than me, but I wasn't on anybody's radar. Rafe was on everyone's mm-hmm. radar. No one knew who I was. And all of a sudden this, 6'9", 6'10" kid from Winnipeg who seems to have soft hands and decent feet is solid. And, Rafe is taking me out to the 3-point line and dribbling between his legs and making me look silly, doing, way better ball handler and complete player. But all of a sudden I was on everybody's radar. So everyone was asking, Coach Clapic for all of my information and phone number. And it got to be so much. He just wrote it on a piece of paper and he held it out. And I think 60 coaches scribbled it down. And the next thing you know, they were calling my parents, and it was out of nowhere. And like a teenage boy, I don't think I'd called my parents that week. I just, I was just off. And so I get home and my parents have a poster board of all the schools that had called and written and offered scholarships. And I was overwhelmed, and I think they were too. So at lunch, when my dad was off at work, he would go to the library and research graduation records for these schools. Like how many of them are serious about academics? Yeah. How many of them, do they have a good program? What are their coaches like? What are their personalities? And so I think they whittled it down a little bit. I think they told Arizona it was too hot. I think they told UCLA, he'll probably get buried on the bench, and Connecticut, you're too far away. And Duke, you're too, I wasn't recruited by, Duke schools like that. No Dukes and Kentuckys and North Carolina. Mm-hmm. But I think maybe there was some schools where they just said no. I think we just had to whittle it down to a working number. So I think they narrowed it down to 10. And then I ended up taking 3 recruiting visits, and it was to Washington, Notre Dame, and Nebraska. And a lot of that was just based on the relationships I had over the phone with the coaches and who I sort of gelled with from a personality standpoint, because I wasn't really a college basketball fan. I didn't really know who was good. Mm-hmm. And in hindsight, Washington, I think, was 5-23 that year. They were not good. They were one of the worst teams in the Pac-10. So in some respects, I'm glad I picked a school based on the personalities of the head coach, Coach Bender, and the assistant coaches, and Richie McKay and Ray Giacoletti and Eric Hughes. I still love all of those people. And I made a choice based on where I felt like home. And I knew that my parents were going to end up on Vancouver Island, and it was going to feel like home. And they came down to every home game for my junior and senior years. And so there was these things that I hoped would happen. I hoped that I could, be close enough that they could watch me, and they did. And I hoped one day I'd look up into the stands and see a Canadian flag, and there was a fan that one of my last games was flying a Canadian flag up there. That was something that I wanted to see. So some of those things ended up coming to fruition. So Washington just felt like home. Seattle felt like a Canadian city to me. A couple hours and you're into British Columbia. So it felt close to my home country for sure.
So suffice to say, your story would be very different if you don't go on that one trip.
I think so. Yeah, I think I was, looking at University of Washington, looking at University of Winnipeg, looking at University of Manitoba, and then I think just from proximity, I was getting looks from North Dakota State, and I think I was thinking maybe I would, take one of those and get a full scholarship and then be home for Thanksgiving and all those things. And after that Arizona trip, my world really opened up to me. And I didn't know if it would work out, but it was certainly worth a shot, and I had to try. And it was, it was a little scary. But fortunately, I was there with, there were 6 of us in the freshman class. I think we were rated the 18th class in the country. Mark Sanford ended up getting drafted from that class, and we had some really good players, and we were all in the same boat, and we became, close friends. And I think that bond helped that team. And our goal was to make it to the NCAA tournament, and Washington hadn't been since, Detlef Schrempf back in 1986. So the goal was very clear. The goal was defined, and our coach Bender, had taken Illinois State to the NCAA tournament. He was known as someone that could build programs, and he had a pretty clear stated mission. And it took until my junior year, but we did it. We made it to, I think my first 2 years, we made it to the postseason, went to the NIT. That's just not the same as NCAA tournament. And then I think maybe we finished 6th, and the Pac-10 took 5. And then the next year we finished 5th, and the Pac-10 took 4. And then I think we had to maybe finish 4th or 5th in order to get in my junior year. And we thought, while we're here, we might as well make it happen. We had nothing to lose. Everyone was, looking at 6-seeded Xavier, and people were saying, watch out for the 6 seed. They can go deep. And we were our mission had been accomplished at that point, make the tournament. So we just went out and played free, and guys really stepped up, and we ended up winning I think we won by a point. And that was pretty close to that out of body experience where I was so excited that we're now in the tournament. We won a game, and I ran down, and our radio guy, Bob Rondo, I went and gave him a big hug. So I tend to run faster at the end of games than during the games. People didn't know, I said, I didn't know you could run that fast, but I so much emotion and so much adrenaline running through me in those. And then on the other side of the bracket, 14-seeded Richmond had beaten, or 13-seeded Richmond had beaten 4th-seeded South Carolina, somewhere in there. Anyway, we were going against a lower seed, and it was you can only put so much in a number. I mean, you can use that to your advantage, or you can use it as an excuse, or the bottom line is it doesn't give that higher seeded team any more points at the start of the game. But mentally, we thought that as an 11 seed, we should beat a 14th ranked team, and we played well against them. And then we made the Sweet 16, and we got to go home to campus, and the coaches are happy, the players are happy, the whole school's happy. It was probably the best week of practice we've ever had, nothing to lose. And then we went up against a really tough Connecticut team and they took us at the buzzer. And so that was a tough loss, but that happens in a game of basketball. It can be frantic and frenetic, and it turns out that they were pretty good. They were a pretty good team, and Rip Hamilton turned out to be a pretty good shooter. So no surprise he made a jumper in the line. You give those guys 4 chances, they're going to make one. Yeah,
exactly. Well, it's so crazy because this yourself, but it's the realm and recruitment it's changed so much, right? And so you had just mentioned hey, I went on this one trip, and had I not gone on that trip, maybe you go to NDSU or something, or UND, or you go to Manitoba, Winnipeg, it's fine. But nowadays, if you play out your exact same story, I mean, you probably playing at a prep school, you probably would have left after the 10th grade potentially. This is what most people are doing now, right? And people would have known who you are. So it is so interesting to hear some of these stories. And I know even some of the people who before you in other parts of Canada. I mean, it's just the networks and connections just didn't exist back then. And so it's crazy to he's holding up your name on a sign. People are like, "Who is this guy?" Right? And I imagine back then being a recruiter was actually like finding diamonds in the rough, right? So, whoever you get to Washington, they're like, that's a big pickup. Like you were completely unknown, and they get you, and it's all because you went to this one tournament. Like it's just crazy, and that would never be the case nowadays, right?
That's they thought they'd got a good one, and as a 6'11" junior, we win the provincial championship against Daniel Mac 61-59. I have 50 in the final, so I have a good game. That's who they recruited. Senior year, I think at that point I'm 6'11 and a half. I reached my full height. Maybe my eating habits weren't the best, and I put on some extra weight, and so then Washington came up to watch me during the senior year, and I was not the same player. I was heavy and out of shape and weak, and they're like, "What? That's not the guy we recruited. What happened to him?" So I get down to Washington, and they we go to the weight room to see where I'm at, and I really hadn't focused enough on the weight room. Just being as big as I was strong enough for what I thought I needed to do. And so I show up in Birkenstocks, and they were like, "Yeah, do you have running shoes?" I'm like, "Yes, I do. I'll wear them tomorrow." Sorry. And so they like, "All right, let's see where you're at, big fella." They're center. So they put on 45s on the bar. So now it's 135 pounds. They want to see how many times I can do that. Right.
Yeah.
I can't do it at all. I can't do it once. And they're like, "Wow, okay, let's go to 35s." And I can't do that. And then we go to 25s and then 10s. And then the next thing I'm doing the bar. So 300-pound center, I'm crushing the bar, and the rest of the team are all doing their work. And they're like, "That's our center from Canada. Why is he only lifting the bar? Why is there no weights on that thing?" So now my arms are dead. And we go over to the military press, but my arms are jello from doing the bench max. And, Coach Giacoletti kind of took me on as a project, and he was like, I believe in this kid. I'm going to get the most out of him. So all the other teammates paired up with another teammate, and I feel like they would skip certain weight things on the weight schedule because they didn't want to do it. And I'm looking at them skipping the hard stuff, and I don't get to skip it. And I'm feeling like I'm getting cheated, when in reality, Coach Giacoletti made sure that he, that I was going to be as good as I could be, because he didn't let me cut any corners. And I thought I was being cheated. In actuality, it's because he cared about me and he knew how good I could be. And then, now we're done with the workout. My arms are dead. It's time to run on the Burt Gilman Trail outside of campus. I'm going to run 5 miles. I don't like driving 5 miles. And so the team starts off, and they get to the end point, and I'm way behind them. And then they turn around and they pass me. And I'm thinking, what's the point of going to the end point if they're going this way? So I turn around and follow them, but then they just kind of leave me in the dust. Not, I would have done the same thing. And now my nose starts bleeding. So I take a leaf out of a local tree and I shove it up my nose to stop the bleeding, and spit's coming out of my mouth. My arms are killing me. I'm dragging my foot like Igor. And I know that we're doing stadium stairs, the Husky football stadium, after this. So I'm thinking I couldn't go any faster if I wanted. But by the time I get there, maybe they'll be half done with stairs. But no, I get to the end, and they're sitting there waiting for me. And I think they're going to be laughing at me. And instead, they're cheering me on. They're like, "Come on, big fella, you got this." So they were encouraging me. Then we go run the stadium stairs. Now my arms are dead from lifting. My lungs are dead from running. My legs are dead from the stairs. And they're like, "Okay, we're going to play pickup against SPU, Seattle." I'm like, right now? Like one day? So now I go to put my shoes on, because you do that. And my arms give out, and I hit the ground like I hit my head on the court, because my arms, I couldn't support me. I could barely tie my shoes, and now I have to stand up, but my arms don't work because they're so jello from the work lift out. So it took everything I had, I swear, to stand up. And I stood up, and I was like, "Yes!" And they're like, "Nice, big fella, you stood up. Good job." And so now we play 2 hours of pickup, but my arms don't work. So a rebound had to fall into my lap. And then I had to just shovel it to somebody, just like, "Point guard, come and take this. I can't throw it to you." So I heaved one up and scored one basket in 2 hours of pickup against D2 guys. And then in the car ride home, I was like, "Guys, I'm not that much to talk about myself," although I've been talking about myself here a lot. I was like, "I'm not as bad as you saw today." And they're like, "No, of course not." And then later, when they saw that I wasn't, they told me, like, "We thought you were the worst player we'd ever seen. Like, we thought Canadians were bad at basketball. We don't know why they got you. We wasted scholarship." But then as I got better and hit the weight room, and coaches decided to redshirt me, which I thought that that they looked at me as a failure in a sense, that I had let them down, that I was not as good as they thought, but they saw the potential in me. And they thought, if we sit him this year and redshirt him and he gets better and stronger, think about how much better he'll be his senior year. And they were right. And so in the scope of things, I was devastated because I thought it meant that they didn't think I was good. In reality, they thought I could be quite good, and that that year would be better off at the end of my career. And they were absolutely right. I was so much better my senior year. That freshman year would have been a wasted year with my need to condition. And some people talk about the jump from high school to college being a big one, and then the jump from college to NBA a bigger one. And they are. But for me, the adjustment, to go from not lifting weights to getting ready for Pac-10 basketball, I felt pretty ready for the pros, leaving Washington, just from a physicality standpoint.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's interesting because, like you said, you redshirted your first year. You end up being all Pac-10. You led the nation in field goal percentage, right? You guys obviously made deep runs. You went into the Sweet 16. So at what point in your college career did you actually know that you were going to get drafted?
I think my sophomore year, we played Michigan, and sophomore year, they still had two of the Fab Five left. Jimmy King and Ray Jackson were still on the team. The other three had gone to the NBA. And so, those guys were famous. I remember I didn't really watch college basketball until, the Fab Five, really. And I remember watching, Leitner hit that crazy shot against Kentucky and watching the Fab Five get all the way to the finals. And now here I am playing against two of those guys that I'd watched. And, I had a double-double. I think I had 12 points and 10 rebounds, and we lost by one. But I thought, okay, I'm a sophomore, and I got a double-double against, Jimmy King, who's, an excellent player. So I started to think that maybe there's a future for me. Maybe I've got a chance. And then, things, I just started, I think I had 38 points in a game. That may have been my sophomore year. Possibly my junior year. I can't remember. Certainly wasn't my senior year. So I started to have some big games, and, in terms of the field goal percentage, I had learned in high school. I mean, you referenced that game against Oak Park where I was, being sandwiched front and back. So, they were able to get the inbounds pass to me. So if I don't want to lose it, I can't put it on the ground. I mean, as big guys, we're taught to gather yourself and do a one dribble drop step and power it up and gather yourself. And every time I tried to do that, somebody would steal it from me. So I learned I got one guy in front of me, one guy behind me. I'm just going to turn and pivot and keep the ball high. And then that got reinforced that freshman year at Washington. We had a guy named Bryant Boston, who at that time was the steals leader in Washington history. And so all year, if I brought it down as a little guy, he took it from me. And I got really tired of Bryant stealing the ball. So I stopped bringing it down, and then there's nothing he can do. And then I think also, I played volleyball through 10th grade at Shaftesbury. And I think I was not a setter, but everyone is expected to set the ball. So I think being comfortable with kind of the ball above my head, and in volleyball, you're in a vulnerable position, but since it's only your teammates on that side, no one's going to take you out. And so I think in basketball, there's a perception that, if you were to set the ball or you stood there and you're just extended, you're weak, or you haven't gathered yourself, or you don't go up and dunk it. But I think the volleyball experience made me comfortable with the ball above my head. And sometimes I would just kind of do a little bunny hop, get the ball, bunny hop, bring it down to my head, and maybe just set the ball back in, whether it was, a two-handed layup, didn't matter to me. So I think volleyball really helped me to be comfortable with the ball above my head, feeling vulnerable. Like, guys might take a shot at my core, but they couldn't get at the ball. And so I think a lot of big guys just feel like I've got to go up strong, and you should. But I think the goal is to put the ball in the net. So if you can catch a rebound and without bringing it back, have enough strength to just bunny hop it back in, that's something that really helped me at every level.
For sure. So then in that same note, like obviously, you did get drafted 47th overall. At what point was it a time when then you found out like, hey, you're likely going to get drafted? Or was it like you didn't even know at the time? Like, are you sitting there waiting, like, is this going to happen? Because you're a later pick. So typically it's up in the air at that point.
Yeah. So after the junior year that I had, where we went to the Sweet 16, and I think I had, maybe averaged 18 and 10 or something over. And then in the second game, my junior year, I had 31 and 18 when we beat Richmond. So I think that put me on the map of some scouts. And leading the nation in field goal percentage for 3 years. My senior year, I was second in rebounding. I averaged 11.9. The leader was 12.1. So in my head, I'm the most accurate shooter, even though I'm only shooting from 7 feet in, but I'm also a solid rebounder and okay at block. So I thought that would be enough to get drafted. Even though, I'd always sort of battled with my confidence. When I was a freshman, I didn't think I would play varsity. When I played varsity, I didn't think I could play university. When I played university, I didn't think I could play in the pros. So I've always sort of, wondered whether I belong or if I could play at that next level. So I wanted to be drafted. I wanted my resume to be enough to be drafted, but I also wasn't sure if I believed, if I was a GM, I don't think I would have picked me just based on my style of the game and whether it would translate to the NBA. But I was hoping that my book of work would get someone to draft me. And I don't know whether my draft stock went up or down my senior year. We didn't do as well in the tournament. We lost in the first round. My free throw percentage dropped to 58 because I got in my own head. So I had a strong senior season, but I don't think I helped myself in terms of draft status. I did have I had the Eric and Aaron Goodwin as my agents, so very good agents, and they were in talks with teams. I worked out for maybe 8 or 9 NBA teams, and so that was a lot. And some of those went okay, and other ones didn't. I mean, I think this Coach Hill was the coach of the Vancouver Grizzlies, and at the end of the workout, I was so tired from all of the drills that Coach, Brian Hill, he had a kind of a padded dummy that you would play defense with. And he's not a particularly tall man, and he was defending me in the block, and I don't think I scored on him. Like, I think I had 10 tries, and I couldn't score on Coach Hill. So I was like, well, the Grizzlies are not drafting me if I can't score on Coach Hill. So that didn't go particularly well. But I did think that I'd get drafted. I really hoped it would be in the first round. I wanted some security. I wanted, a guaranteed contract for 3 years with the possibility of a fourth. But I didn't know if that would happen. I wasn't invited to the draft. I don't know if they invite the top, 15 or 20 draft picks. I wasn't invited to go. I chose not to play in some of those pre-draft camps. I didn't want to play in them. I'd heard that maybe big guys don't shine, that it's kind of a point guard's opportunity. Everyone's trying to get their own. My agents sort of agreed that they didn't think it would be the best light, and that I'd played for, 4 years in college, and that anyone that wanted to see what I could do or had done had the availability for that. And so I ended up not going the first round, and I was devastated. I really wanted to be in the first round. I really wanted that security. I kind of wanted easy street, and that hadn't happened before. And I'm in hindsight, I'm kind of glad that it didn't happen, but I wanted that. And so I was in tears. So I got drafted 47th. 60 people are drafted in the NBA every year, and I'm crying because I'm sad, because I'm disappointed at the expectations. I wanted some security, and when you're a second round pick, I don't know about now, but back then you weren't guaranteed anything. You weren't guaranteed any financial compensation. You were guaranteed to have your name in the books as being drafted by that team. And I found out later that the Sixers did not have a plan to keep me, that I wasn't part of their plan over the next few years, that I could go to Europe and play. And if I developed and matured and improved, then they would have my rights, and maybe they would consider me for the future. So they let me play with Team Canada, and I showed up at camp sort of devastated and a shell of myself. Even though I'd been drafted in the NBA, I wasn't believing in my skills at that time. Now I'm playing with the guys and Steve Nash, and all of a sudden basketball is fun again. And we go down to Puerto Rico to try and qualify for the Olympics, and we beat Argentina, and we beat Brazil, and we beat Mexico, and we're rolling. And now all we have to do is beat Puerto Rico in Puerto Rico. And unfortunately, the enormity of the moment, I didn't think that I could make the NBA when I was a kid, but I thought I could make Canada's national team. I thought I could help them to the Olympics. And now we're one game away, and the enormity of that moment kind of overwhelmed me. And I kind of got a little bit paralyzed, and I felt really bad that I was letting down the team and the coach and the country. Fortunately, Steve Nash went the other way. Instead of playing like normal Steve Nash high level, he took it a notch further, and he carried us to victory. And all of a sudden, we are now in the Olympics, and I am happy that my poor performance hasn't hurt us, and that we get to play in the Olympics. And the next game is against the U.S. in the final, but Canada and U.S. have secured a berth to Sydney. Yeah. So I go into the game with a completely different mindset. I was so overwhelmed and so paralyzed with the enormity of the moment. now our mission is accomplished. Go have fun. So you're going up against Kevin Garnett and Tim Duncan and Alonzo Mourning. You're Todd MacCulloch from Winnipeg. So what do do the best you can. And we lose, I think, by 28. And I get home, and Peter Garashi, my roommate, says, "Hey, there's a message for you on the phone," and it's my agent saying, "Nice game, 22 points and 16 rebounds against the Dream Team against Coach Brown. You are being offered a 2-year contract for the Sixers, and so welcome to the NBA." So it really taught me a lesson about getting out of my head and trying to make things so important. And they are, but it was, trying to realize that this is a big game, but not to overwhelm myself. And then going forward, taking that attitude of like, this is a game, go have fun. And the results are going to be better if I don't put that much pressure on myself. And anytime you're playing with Steve Nash, the game just gets easier. So I highly recommend it. If you can play basketball with Steve Nash, I highly recommend it, especially as a big guy.
Yeah, I was gonna say. They say a lot of people have owe him a lot of money. Apparently,
I owe Steve some money. That's for sure. I owe him some money.
Well, you kind of started getting into the Team Canada stuff, and I have a few questions that I'll save for later about the NBA. But you tell some stories. But with you end up going to the Olympics, and like we mentioned in the intro there, you end up winning your pool, with that team, right? And I remember watching this, like, obviously, like I said, we also haven't been to the Olympics on the men's side since that day, and it's 2023, right? So obviously hoping for some positive stuff up and coming here. I'm wearing my Canada Basketball shirt right now. I'm a big supporter. Yeah, thank you. I'm a big supporter of the program, and always have been since I started getting to basketball. So I mean, really just generally, like, what do you remember about that experience? I mean, everything, opening ceremonies, did you attend it? Just like that, I guess that's the only one and only Olympic Games you've ever been to. You must hold that dear in your heart. Obviously a very special team as well.
Yeah, it was incredible. From Coach Triano to Steve and to all those other teammates. We were brothers, and we spent so much time with each other over that summer and over every summer. But I think we all looked forward to it. And this was something that we all wanted. I think 1988 was the time before when Canada had been, and that was Jay Triano in 88 and 84. So he believed in us. He knew it could be done, and he knew how special it was. So when we got there, he's like, guys, we've got a game coming up. We'll be on our feet, but I recommend we do the opening ceremonies if everybody wants to do it. And he was like, this is an experience you'll take with you for the rest of your life. And so he really wanted us to have that. And so it was incredible. And, Sydney, Australia, wonderful city, wonderful country, wonderful people. And so I couldn't, if I had to pick a city to play in the Olympics, it probably would have been Sydney, Australia. They were wonderful hosts. And we had gone over, I think Australia didn't think that we were going to the Olympics in 99. So earlier that summer, they had maybe flown us over to play them in 4 exhibition games all across Australia. And we got into some scraps because you start seeing the same team night in, night out. There's going to be some physicality. And I think they'd beaten us in most, if not all of those games. And so when we played them in the first game in the Olympics and shocked them, surprised them, I think it opened up a lot of people's eyes. And then we went on a roll, and we beat Spain, and I think we played Angola, and we were doing, very well. And then we went up against a tough Russian team. And I think we sort of missed as well as we were playing. And the whole goal was don't finish fourth, 6 teams in each side. If we finish fourth, we're going to cross over and play the USA. And that was going to be a tough match. So the goal was finish 1, 2, or 3. And as well as we were doing, we just kind of had to not lose by 14 against Russia. So we kind of went in with the wrong attitude. I think if we'd gone in with the right attitude, I think that was a winnable game. But we kind of took our foot off the gas a little bit. And then I think we ended up losing by 14. And we weren't sure what that meant in terms of the plus for and against algorithm. And it ended up with a mathematical formula that said that maybe Australia, gets in. Canada, they assumed that we would lose to Yugoslavia. So that would have put us in the 4th spot. And some newspaper had written, Canada will lose Australia. They'll lose to Yugoslavia. They'll finish 4th, and they will be eliminated by the Americans. And so, the Coach Triano was like, well, let's go and, forget this reporter. Let's beat Yugoslavia. Let's finish first in the pool, and let's play somebody else. And so that's what we did. So I think we surprised a lot of people by beating a world power like Yugoslavia. And then unfortunately we went up against a really tough French team, and I think we ended up losing by 5. So that was the crossover game, the quarterfinal that would have gotten us into the medal round. So things were going really, really well until that game. And unfortunately, we ended up with a record of 5-2. So did France, and they ended up with a silver medal. But we lost that game. That quarterfinal is a killer. It's a must win, and we just couldn't get it done. And so great experience. It was so amazing to represent Canada with those guys in that city. My wife got to go down and be a part of it, and lots of our family members took advantage of how special that moment was. And the fact is we haven't been back since. So it makes it even that much more special knowing, just thinking only 12 teams, basketball is a world game. Lots of countries are good at it. So just to be one of those 12 is a big accomplishment. But our Coach Triano was good about, guys, it's not enough for us to be there. We're going to go there and we're going to compete. And we're going to try and win a medal. So let's readjust our goals now that we're in. And so I have very fond memories of that time.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so just going back to the NBA here, I have to ask, again, you could tell this any way you want, tell a story. Again, as I opened up the podcast questions, I remember you having to guard Shaq. And again, there wasn't a single person who could do it. So it's not like, hey, you know what, he's dunking on you. That's kind of what he did his entire career. It's why he's one of the all-time greats. But you also got to play with Iverson. And you also got to play with Jason Kidd. You've got to play with a bunch of NBA players and against a bunch of NBA players. So, maybe just, again, the floor is yours kind of to kind of talk about what you'd like to talk about. Again, you played in back-to-back NBA finals as well. You kind of had an anomalous career would be the best way to put it. Like you're starting in one NBA finals, you're playing with really good players, and you only played 4 years in the NBA. It's kind of hard to say, I guess my question is what's it like guarding Shaq? What's it like playing with Iverson? Again, I could ask so many questions, and for the sake of all of our time, I'm not going to be able to answer them. So, people have asked you these questions before. So what's your take when I just throw all that on you?
I feel very fortunate to have made it to the NBA, and that even though I only played for 4 years, that I got to play with, legends like Iverson and Jason Kidd, and then got to play against guys like Shaq and Michael Jordan at the end of his career, and got to guard Patrick Ewing, and got to guard Akeem Olajuwon, got to guard Charles Barkley. So all of these guys that I looked up to and watched, and fortunately, some of them were towards the end of their career. Shaq and Kobe were right in the prime of their career when we met them. And so I was trying to guard Shaq, and a shot from the opposite baseline is probably gonna, if it misses, it's, I'm trying to play the numbers of where the ball's going to. So I feel like I'm in perfect rebounding position. I have Shaq on my back. You try and use those same principles. You find your man, you box him out, you put a body on him, and then you go get the ball. So I'm in perfect rebounding position, Shaq on my back. Ball misses where I think it will. It comes right to me. So I guess I'll preface this by, I had a teammate named Pepe Sanchez who was played at Temple. He was a Sixer teammate of mine. He and I spent a lot of time on the bench together. So we had some bench chats, and Shaq was getting all of our big guys into foul trouble. Tyrone Hill was in foul trouble. Matt Geiger was in foul trouble. Theo Rattler was in foul trouble. So Pepe said, "Hey, get ready, man. You got to go in there pretty soon, but careful. I think Shaq's going to hurt you." I'm like, "He's not going to hurt me, Pepe." He's like, "I think he's going to hurt you." And I go in, and so I jump up for this rebound, and Shaq jumps up higher and faster, and he gets the ball, and he inadvertently catches me with an elbow, like right in my clavicle. And I don't know, it pinches a nerve in my neck, and I buckle to the ground. I just go down, I just collapse. And he goes and dunks on somebody and gets an and one. And the coach is yelling at me, and Pepe's laughing. And I'm like, "Pepe, stop laughing." He's like, "I told you he'd hurt you." Coach is yelling. I'm like, "Sorry, coach, what'd you say?" And then I was a scorer. I didn't like to share the basketball. So I had 4 assists my freshman year in college, 5 assists my sophomore year. For the whole year. And so if I got the ball, I was trying to score it, and I forgot Shaq was guarding me. So if I got the ball, I went into my steps. I took a dribble to the middle, and I'm going into like a sweeping left hook. And while I turned, I could see Shaq guarding me. He's a very good defender, very good shot blocker. And it's too late. Now I think everybody, the game is different, right? You've got your 3-point shooters and you know where your outlets are. And if you get into trouble, I know we've got a guy there. I know we got a guy there. And I never looked to pass the ball. If I made a move, I was going to finish the basket. So I realized halfway through my steps, I'm locked in. I forget Shaq is guarding me. I don't know why I'm being the aggressor in this situation. But I go up with a sweeping, running skyhook like Jabbar. Probably didn't look like Jabbar. But it just misses the tips of Shaq's fingers and it goes off the backboard and it rolls in and I'm as stunned as anybody. And we run down the court and Shaq is like, "Hey man, that was a nice shot." I was like, "Sorry, it won't happen again. I didn't know you were my bad." So he was a class act. And I think we played them with the Nets in the finals and they beat us, twice in LA, and we come home to Jersey. And at the end of the game, they beat us again, and he's getting on the team bus, and the valet has I used to have a 1997 Porsche, nothing special. I probably shouldn't have, it was too small for me, but I wanted one. And Shaq recognized that it was just too small for me. So the valet leaves the door. I'm about to walk in, and Shaq's like, "Todd, what are you doing?" And I was like, I don't know. Like, I'm a little starstruck, Shaq and I are in the same court, but he's a big, massive, larger than life personality who I've looked up to and incredible personality and player. So I don't know what to say. So I was like, that's my car. I got to go home. He's like, "It's not your car. Valet made a mistake. Have him bring your car around." I was like, "I got to go buy Shaq." So I jump in my car and I drive home. And then we play him center circle. We're jumping game 4 of the finals. And Shaq looks at me and he's like, "Be careful." And I'm like, "What do you mean be careful?" He's like, "Be careful driving home in that little car. I don't want to see you get hurt." I was like, "How can you be so funny right now? Like, we're playing a game." And, just playing with Iverson was a ton of fun. He was such a competitor, and I don't know. We were playing. I think we were in Toronto, and we had a 2-on-0 break, and I don't know. He had lots of 1-on-0 breaks, and I don't know how it was him and I with nobody behind us, but he was in a scoring race, and for some reason he gave the ball to me, and I knew I had to make it, and so I ended up dunking. But I thought, how fun is this? I'm out on the break with Allen Iverson. There, and he gave me the ball. So he was just, such a fun guy. And I talked to him after the game, and I'd be like, "Allen, we combined for 48 tonight. You had 44, I had 4, so I thought we did a pretty good job." So he was just a ton of fun to play with. And Jason Kidd was a great leader in New Jersey. We would warm up, and the trainer would say, put the ball in your right hand, and then put your ball in the left hand. Then he'd say, "Put your ball in the weak hand." And Jason Kidd would just run behind the basketball bouncing like, "Jason, what are you doing?" He's like, "I don't have a weak hand, coach. I got a left hand. I don't have a weak hand." And so he was so good with either hand. And I was known as somebody that could catch the ball. And, first day of training camp, I think Jason Kidd had a no look that I was ready for, I thought, and I dropped it. And one of my teammates was like, "Come on, man, that's Jason Kidd. You got to be ready." And in my head, I'm like, I dropped one pass. I was ready. And I made sure not to drop too many more because I wanted Jason to keep finding me. And I was like, I can catch the ball. Let me drop one pass. It's training camp. And I did not try and drop too many more of those. And with Iverson, you didn't want to drop too many passes either. You wanted to make most of those opportunities. So you
weren't getting much with him. So you have to be ready.
And, I'm trying to guard Hakeem Olajuwon when he was with the Raptors toward the end of his career. And I've never done the dream shake in my life, but because Hakeem was guarding me, I'm giving him the dream shake and I fade, and it would have been so pretty and clang off the background. I'm like, man, I blew my dream shake against Hakeem, and it just didn't go in. And then my dad was watching. I was playing. Barkley was with Houston towards the end of his career. Yeah. And my dad was watching. The broadcasters were the Houston ones, and they said, "Watch Barkley take this rookie to school." And Barkley shot a shot, and I blocked him. And I think they said that I had no respect for my elders and no respect for history. And then I think Barkley on the next trip down the court, he blew his patella tendon, and he had already said that was going to be his last year. So I started thinking, did I just block the last shot that Barkley would ever take? And
that was their game. That was against you guys.
That was when he had that injury. Yeah. And it came when he crumpled. His forehead hit my shin and bruised my shin. That's how hard he hit the floor. But he didn't want to be carried off in his last game, so he rehabbed, and he walked on later in the year. Got a basket or two, got a rebound, and walked off under his own power. So I didn't block Barkley's last shot, but I did try.
So, but we got to ask though, how tall is Iverson for real?
6.5 feet, maybe. I mean, he's
Maybe.
listed
Okay.
listed at 6'1", but I don't know. He's not that tall, but he's. I mean, in practice, he drove baseline, and I thought he was going to dish it to somebody, and then he just jumped straight up and then dunked it right on my head. And I was sort of surprised because I hadn't seen him do that in practice before. And he's like, didn't you ever see any highlights of me at Georgetown? I got hops. I'm like, no, I knew you could do that. I just wasn't expecting you to just jump straight up and dunk right on me. So he was so talented and so fast, and he was a special player. It was just fun to be around, and he wanted to win so bad, and it was fun to just ride his coattails.
Yeah, no kidding. So obviously, again, 4 years, short career, but lots of memories. It obviously got cut short because of that neuromuscular disorder. But I think I just wanted to kind of bring this up real quick because, obviously nowadays, mental health and all this stuff it's very like the buzzwords. People talk about this stuff all the time. It's very commonplace. But really the question is how difficult were those times for you and like mentally and emotionally to go through that? You're playing, you're just starting to get good and you're playing in the NBA. All these great things are happening. And then all of a sudden you're being told like you can't play anymore.
Yeah, it was really tough. I had never, suffered depression in my life. Things have been going pretty well for me. So it was very difficult to just have, foot problems that were, tough to explain. And, with sports, you usually talk about injuries, whether it's a broken leg or it's a knee surgery or it's an ACL or it's an elbow. There's a time limit. Like he's got this injury, he's out for this long of the season. And when I'm seeing these neurologists, no one's able to give me a window or say like this may not be reversible. Like this may be with you forever. This may be the end. No one really wanted to say it, but no one was putting an end date on this thing. How do we fix it? So it was very difficult just not knowing, and then just having it be pretty invisible and not having crutches and not having a cast and just having this, injury or this problem, something to keep me off the court and not really being able to explain it very well. Or it was kind of misunderstood and perplexing. And then I think the persistence of it, and just that with nerve injuries, they're different than musculoskeletal. And even if you're sitting there with your feet on an ottoman, doesn't really take the nerve pain away. So there was really no way to get away from it. And that takes its toll on you mentally. And I was just in a great position where I was on a team I really liked. You work so hard to get somewhere. And then I was really starting to get my confidence. I mean, by the time I was a net and I was a starter and that team went to the finals, I felt like I was an important member of this team, and I have my confidence and I do feel like I belong. And I was just starting to get that, and then got traded back to the Sixers and started for half a season. So I felt like now I've started for two teams and I really do belong. And all of a sudden I couldn't play anymore. So it was very difficult. And I think, fortunately, what was really good for me was the Sixers asked me if I wanted to be part of the radio broadcast team. And I started working with Tom McGinnis, and that kept me in the game. It kept me, I still got to stay friends with my teammates. And now I got a new family in the broadcasters, and I get to travel and be with them and not have as much time for my own headspace. I had a job to do. I had to talk about the games. I had to forget about my own situation. And I think over the course of the next 5 years, it just helped me get ready for the next phase of my life, which was, my wife and I, and having kids and starting the next chapter. So that transition zone that broadcasting allowed me, put me in a much better place for the second half of my life.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I think I wanted to bring that up just because I know like a lot of people struggle with the classic injuries, and sometimes they're career ending as well. And I think just understanding that transition that, you took place and hearing those stories can help a lot of people when their basketball, career is over, or that journey for them is transitioning. Maybe it's not over, but they're expressing it in a different way or experiencing it differently. So like you said, for you, it was broadcasting. Other people, it's coaching, lots of different ways to kind of stay involved in the game. You've told us so many stories. I usually ask a question, funny basketball story, memorable basketball story. I think we've kind of covered all those, unless something pops up that you want to share. Because I've pretty much come to the end here. I just have one final question. So is there any questions that you haven't any things that you haven't shared yet that are memorable or funny that you would just have to share if someone said, hey, tell me your funniest or most memorable basketball story?
There was one. We were in Detroit, and so this is just a reminder for basketball players to always pay attention, always be listening in the timeout. Don't let your attention wander. And as a rookie, we had five big guys, and I was either fourth or fifth on that depth chart, and so there was a lot of games where I just didn't play. So sometimes I'd feel like, well, maybe it's not that important that I'm listening to this timeout, because what's the point? I'm not going to play. But it's just a reminder to always be ready. So we're playing in Detroit against the Pistons and in the Palace. And there's the mascot is up on the upper deck with a toboggan sled, and he's going to sled down the aisle. And I can't take my eyes off him, but there's a timeout. So I got to pretend like I'm looking, but I don't want to miss this guy. And Matt Geiger comes over to yell at me, and he's like, dude, check this guy out. This guy's so crazy. I love this mascot. And I was like, okay, I thought you were going to come over here and chastise me and tell me to watch the timeout. But he was like, dude, this mascot is insane. We got to watch this. I'm like, I love the NBA that you can, you got to pick your moments. And then I didn't learn my lesson then. And in the playoffs, I didn't play in the first round. I think we beat the Pacers in the first round. And then we beat the Raptors in that really incredible series. And then we go up against Milwaukee. And I don't think I played in those first two series. So I just assumed I'm not going to play in this third one. Why would I? So I'm not listening in the timeout in Milwaukee. And for some reason, coach puts me into the game after the timeout. He calls the play, diagrams it. I'm not watching. And he's like, Todd, get Geiger. And I'm like, I don't want to be like, hey, coach, wasn't listening, draw the play again. What do I do? So I thought I could just figure it out, because most of our plays I'm lifted on the right. So I just thought I'll just start lifted on the right. And coach, I'm in the complete wrong place. So he's like, Todd, what are you doing? So I'm like, oh, maybe I'm supposed to be lifted on the left. So I run to the left, and that's not it. He's like, Todd, what are you doing? So now I'm like, I have to get the rebound. So I've never had more desire in my life. Somebody shot it, and I knew they'd miss. So I pushed everyone out of the way, and I got the rebound, and I went back up, and I think I got fouled, and I think he kept me in the game. But I was like, especially in the playoffs, you should always listen to the coach's timeouts. I thought maybe he should have subbed me in before, then I could have known to pay more attention. But that's on me. That's not on him.
Too much. Okay, well, we're pretty much coming to the end. I've taken, I think, more than an hour of your time, and I appreciate it. I just have one last question. Typically, I ask for advice, but that's not what I'm going to do with you, because one thing we haven't talked about is the Todd MacCulloch Hoop School. And so really the question is, why is it so important for you to kind of stay involved in Manitoba basketball? Like, I know you don't live there anymore. You've spent a short time there, considering how long you've lived at this point. So why did you want to stay connected, and tell us a little bit about the connection to the school and kind of how it was founded?
Well, Adam Wedlake has been phenomenal to work with, and I loved growing up in Winnipeg. And Neil Taylor was one of my coaches with the provincial team, and someone that I still talk to. And it was an incredible coach, and it was sort of his suggestion. He's like, hey, here's a way that you could be involved with with Basketball Manitoba and the city. And I think Garth McAlpine wrote the program, and I loved the concept, and I loved the fact that it was kind of going to be almost like a summer basketball camp experience, but throughout the school year, and maybe some schools that maybe might not have had an opportunity to attend some of those camps. I had a great time at basketball camps in the summer, but it would have been fun to have something throughout the school year, and then to have it end up in a jamboree. So I thought it was a great suggestion, and something that I was completely in support of. And then just to see, how it's grown, and how much those initial schools enjoyed it, and then how Basketball Manitoba was able to take that template and then apply it and expand it. And so it made me happy to see that something with my name on it that the kids really enjoyed. And I sort of stressed I wanted it to be fun, and they've made it fun. And that's part of why the program has been so successful, and why it's been able to, affect more schools, and how it's grown, and how Basketball Manitoba has thrown their support behind it. So it's something that I'm really, really proud of. And I always get the updates from Adam on how well it's gone and how much the kids enjoyed it. And so it's something that I'm very proud to lend my name and support towards, because it's a lot of kids have had a great experience, and I think they've gotten better at the game. They've had fun, and that was always a really important ingredient to me, that they're enjoying it, and that the coaches enjoy the process as well.
Well, it's a great way to kind of wrap, because typically when I ask for advice, people give advice that is an expression of their story, but this program is the expression of kind of your journey and what you kind of found through basketball. And the one thing you said when you were talking about some of your experiences there, you know, when you said, hey, when I just play for fun, I have fun out there and I just take the pressure off and it's just about fun. I play pretty well. Right. And I think, you know, you went on to tell a bunch of funny stories and experiences that you've had. And I think that's, you know, you mentioned Todd Mac Hoop School, kids have fun like 3 times. Right. And that's probably the number one priority in that thing. And it's interesting in hearing your whole story. That's something that you clearly prioritize with basketball, is that it's an outlet for people to enjoy themselves first and foremost. And anything that comes after that is gravy.
That's exactly right. And so I've been a kid my whole life, even though I'm going to be 47 here soon. I've got kids of my own. I've always just tried to have fun, and I think it's helped me in life. And I think it's a way to just, you know, have positive endorphins running through your body, and I think it keeps you young. And I just think basketball is a great game, and only such a small percentage of people ever go on to play professionally. That I just think you should, and I still have lifelong friendships, you know, from my teammates in high school and college and the NBA. And so I think that's what it should be about. And if you can take it further and you can play the game longer, go for it. But I think at the grassroots program, you know, if you're, you know, my son's playing on a basketball team right now, my daughter's playing on a volleyball team, and they're great experiences that I think they're going to have with them forever. So I keep saying that word fun, but it's something that's been working for me. So I'm gonna keep searching that out.
Absolutely. Well, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time. And I might add, from the car, we had 0 connection issues. The sound is great somehow, and the camera angle is perfect. And somehow we're doing it on the side of the road. I don't know where you are. I think
we're on to something.
Maybe that's what that's the new format.
In the car, you know, cars and coffee with comedians and basketball.
There you go. Well, I appreciate you taking the time, Todd. And like I said, you know, all the people you've played with in Manitoba, you've had a huge success, a huge effect on all these people. Again, you know, I'm a product of some of your success, and I know people who've been part of the Todd Mac Hoop School. So thank you for taking the time, and yeah, take care. And hopefully you continue to have these connections with Manitoba moving forward.
Well, thanks a lot. And look me up when you're in the Seattle area. Let's hang out.
Absolutely. All right. Take care.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
All right. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to today's episode. Please like, subscribe, follow, and share this series, and reach out to us with your comments on the show. Thanks again for joining us.